Doodlebud here. Today we're checking out this lovely pen sent to me by Stilform. They are a German design company and they've opened up here in Canada. Being Canadian, they reached out, said, Doodlebud, do you want to check out one of our pens? I said, sure. I've heard of the name, haven't really heard much about the pens though. So I thought, why not? This is new. They sent a bottle of ink to go with it as well. This is their aluminum bodied pen, and the color here, this is the Aurora Green, so it's an anodized aluminum. And there's lots of nib options. You can go steel, black steel, titanium gold, this one here, but you can see by the color, if you can see that properly, it's a Bach titanium nib. And yeah, so you can configure it lots of different ways. We will get into that. I'll, of course, do writing samples, weights, measurements, all that stuff, tell you what I think about it. There are some little interesting things I found out. Well, only one way to do this is get into it. So this box here is obviously the box that the pen came in. Very simple packaging. You slip it open here. Whoop, slide it open. This is the little pen. Instead of the plastic pen sleeve, it's got like a little kind of clothy bag, just slips on in there to protect it. So if you don't have a pen case or like to keep that, away you go. When you take the pen out, it says flip me, instructions on bottom side. So let's do that, and here they are. So you actually assemble the pen. So the little nib here, it came actually in its own little tube, and you take, there's a collar that it slips into, screw in the nib housing, and put the pen together. So I hadn't seen that before. I'm not sure why they do that, but it is a little bit different. I'll show you how you do that. It's inked right now, so I'll do the writing sample and all that stuff, unink it, and then I'll go ahead and show you how that's done. Very simple design, as you can see here, you know, your classic kind of tube, rounded edges on both sides, so very kind of minimalist design. We got the Stilform into the body as well. And yeah, the overall finish on here is really good. You don't really see any machine marks. The pre-processing before the anodizing is really done, all the finishing work there as well. So that's quite nice. If you look at the body here, you just unscrew it. We got really good quality threads. Everything's quite nice. Fits your standard international converter. You can, of course, slip in cartridges as well. And this is the portion here, along with the nib housing that you screw on into the pen. The pen caps, it has a magnetic system to do so, and so you got your ring down here, you got the magnets. Let's turn the flash on. There we are. You got the magnets down there. Also, you can see we have our special torque screw down at the bottom there, probably to hold that whole assembly into the body. And that is how the capping lines up. So you put the cap on, and then away you go with the pen. And it lines up pretty good. Sometimes it'll be off just a touch. Doing alignment with magnetic caps, you'll never get it 100% perfect all the time. If you want something perfect, you know, a screw cap will do that, because you can do it on the number of turns and where your threads start and stop, but it holds it quite well. One thing I always worry about with magnetic capping pens is nib dry out, and to double check that to make sure it's not an issue, I've actually left it for 2 weeks with the pen, you know, capped like that, of course. Took it out, put it down, wrote with it, and it wrote right away. So that was quite nice. You can also see on here there's some flat spots. So it doesn't come with a clip. You can purchase a clip for the pen from the website, and it fits onto here as well. Additionally, if you really have to have a clip in your pen, so they do have that as an option, but it's quite nice. You have flat spots on both sides, and you got the Stilform here. And when you assemble it, I'll show you how to do it. You just line up the logo to the nib on the flat, and then, you know, the world is at peace when that stuff lines up, the flat, the logo, and the nib, because otherwise, if it's off kilter, oh boy, you won't be able to sleep at night. But overall, quite simple pen, as I showed you. I think I've showed you everything you need to see that you can see here looking through the video, but it works quite nice. Tapered section. I usually don't like anodized aluminum smooth sections. Usually they're just too slippery, but something about just this particular section, I can get down with it. It's pretty good, pretty comfortable. There isn't like a big step down. Some pens have a large step down when you flush them out like that, but just due to the design, it's quite nice. So I can kind of stagger my grip. That's kind of how I hold it. I'm not really far down at the end, but it's quite nice. So I don't really have any issues with it kind of slipping in my hand. The Diplomat Arrow is a pen I absolutely love the looks of, but the section on that one just doesn't work for me, so I was kind of worried. This one works quite well. Break out the scale and tell you the mass of the pen, 29 grams on the dot. That was a fluke. That is with the converter and a good chunk of ink in there. And with the cap off, that drops the mass down to, look at that, 20 grams. Now notice I'm saying mass instead of weight, because if we're talking grams, technically that's mass. Weight, I would have to tell you in newtons, and 29 grams is about 0.28 newtons. About 145 millimeters, about 137. No, it does not post. Diameter on the round, now on the flats. Section starts at 11.3, 9.6, and it's about 24 millimeters long. Here are some other pens to compare it against. We're going to put it in the little tray. Just finished making this. Came off hot off the printer. So this is kind of nice because everything always rolls around all the time. I was like, I really need to have a pen tray to do this, so I finally made one. But here we go. We have a Pelikan M805 Diplomat Excellence A2, the Stilform, a Narwhal piston filler, and then a Lamy 2000. So pretty close to the Lamy 2000 and the Diplomat A2, just short of the Narwhal. And now with the caps off, it's the longest of the bunch. For the writing sample, I have some Clairefontaine paper, and I'm using the supplied Stilform blue ink. They call it Night Sky. There is only two options, blue or black, and if you've known my channel for any length of time, I'm always going to go with blue. So let's get writing. We have the Stilform. Already screwed that up. Here's try that again. We have the Stilform. And you can see there it's skipping a bit, and I will tell you what that is all about. The color on this one is the Aurora Green. The titanium nib on this one, I normally don't like how titanium nibs feel. Like, they feel okay, but they're not my favorite. This one, I don't know, it really feels nice. I quite like it. And on the site, I think it's extra fine through broad are the nib options. I'll do a little more writing with the pen, but as you can see here, we're missing a little bit, and it's just to do with this one here. The tying gap is just too tight. I mentioned this to them as soon as I inked up the pen, started writing with it. Actually, I checked it under a microscope, and under my loop, I should say, noticed it was pretty tight, inked it, and yeah, it just misses a bit. So if you use very light pressure, like just kind of the pen pressure, it's not really going to do much. It would just get a little bit. If you put a little more pressure on it, then it flows quite nicely, but the tines just need to be opened up a little bit. I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. I did bring it to their attention, and they took note of it. The wetness on the pen, of course, if you put a little bit of pressure on it, it's quite nice and juicy. I do like the flow of it, and you do get some nice line variation. So this is a medium. Of course, just this one's running dry, so if you go super light, it's super faint and thin. But it's a good medium line, but it does have, it's not a flex nib, but it is, you know, quite a nice little bit of line variation. I'll just do a little basic type flexy writing here. So it is very comfortable in the hand, nice lightweight. I like the section, all that stuff, quite good. Like I said here, this particular nib is just, it's running dry and it needs to be tweaked. So I'm going to take the pen apart now, and I'll show you how I'm going to adjust that nib and tweak it. And while I'm doing it, I'll show you the assembly part and a little trick here just to get everything lined up. Cleaned out the pen, and I might as well just show you the assembly part while we do this as well before I do the nib. So when you get the pen, it's not like this, it's more like this. So it's just the body, where am I? That's the cap. So the body is screwed in like so. Actually, I think the collar is inside the body, or maybe it's outside of it. I can't quite remember anyways. But you just have this. So then what you do, the nib was in a little separate container. You pop it out, and you go to assemble your bits, and it's pretty straightforward as they show you here on the back of the box. So again, I haven't seen that before. Not sure why they chose to do that, but I will show you a little tip on here as well. So you fit your collar in like so, and then you're going to screw your nib in, and away you go. Now, the only challenge there, so you snug it up, but then when you screw this down, I mean, if you get mega lucky, everything's aligned. Holy cow, that was pretty close. Let's just redo that again. Again, got super lucky there, but you might snug it there, just depending on orientation. There we go. Let's do it again, and what you'll see is that the nib isn't aligned with the facets here, with the flat spots. There we go. So this is more like the first time. So we got the nice flat going, and then we're at an angle. So what you want to do is go on and get yourself a pencil, and then you're going to make a little mark on here, so that way you know where you want things aligned. And we'll just do a little mark down here as well, so that I'll use as a guide when you assemble everything. So now what I will do is align the nib, essentially the slit, to that little pencil mark. Hold that steady, snug the back end. Okay, now we're snug. Put this on. And when I snug it down, as we look down the length of the pen here, everything is nicely aligned and all is good in the world. And just a pencil, you can just rub that off and you're good to go. The converter on the pen that they supply is a threaded converter. So it threads into that whole collar part there. Now this is one thing that's a little bit interesting, because depending on how you hold the pen when you snug it down, so let's just say you're just going to hold the section, it's the big part, and you snug it down, then what happens is you can see here this whole thing rotates and turns. So I think just a press in converter would be a little bit better, because then your alignment gets off. So then if you go, okay, you didn't quite notice that the thing spun, you got to put this back on, of course, and now the alignment is off. I realigned everything, but how you would avoid that is you grip it here when you thread in the converter, and then you don't have the issue of things spinning. I'm not the hugest fan of thread-in converters. You know, it does make it more secure, and you're not going to have it rattling in the pen body. But yeah, that's just one little thing as well. And just one note, when you're assembling the pen, you are sort of introducing a new possible avenue for an assembly issue, assembly error. Things do happen, and you should see the number of comments and emails I get from folks. And it's pretty amazing what people do to their pens sometime. So just a word of caution: when you are assembling, you typically going to squeeze top and bottom, and you'll snug it down. When you do that, though, because you're twisting, sometimes the feed and the nib can get out of alignment. So you just want to give that a quick inspection. I have seen tines get out of an alignment from assembling as well. So just be mindful of that. And that is, yeah, that's just sort of one reason I think it would be better, just for shipping the pens, having the nib and this collar here assembled. That way it just reduces the chance of having an error. You can see here I snug that, and you can see there the feed just went out a little bit. So in that case, I just do that. We're all good now, everything's aligned, but it's just one of those little things. What I'm going to do now is I took out the nib and feed, just pulled it right out of the pen, and I will get you a quick shot under some magnification of the nib. I will adjust it, open up the tying gap, and we'll double check it, then we'll write again. And essentially what I'm going to do is just grab it by the shoulders here and separate a little bit. We'll see if you can get some more daylight going in behind there. You can see that opens a little bit. So I'm just going to be doing that, taking a look. I might have to put a feeler gauge in and just kind of wedge things a little bit. But even just what I did there, that might be enough. But let's get out the microscope attachment. Here we are before on the bottom side. And there we go on the top side. So you can see that slit is just too narrow. One cool thing with titanium nibs, there's the gold. So during the process of getting the tipping on there, there's some heat. And you get a teeny little bit of anodization going on. Now I will adjust the nib. I got my little feeler gauge here. This is my 1.5 thou, or what is it, 0.038 millimeters. And as I thread it in there and pull it out, oh, focus, where are you? There you go. You can feel it. It's just too much tugging on that feeler gauge. So I'm just going to spread the shoulders a little bit and try to improve it. So it's just grabbing here on the sides and just applying some sidewards pressure. Now, sometimes with the nib, you can do some strokes on it while it's in the pen on a bit of a firmer surface. With titanium, just because of their bounce, I find that technique just doesn't quite work. So I'm just going to be doing this for a little bit, and I'll show you the progress when I'm done. I'm back, and I finished adjusting the nib. I'll show you a close-up here again, but I have it just where I like it. So it was a combination of opening the tines and then also just going on the desk, the hard surface here in the back, and just giving it a little press and hold, and then just checking it with the loop. Titanium ones are just a little bit more tricky because they are a little bit more bouncy as well. So they will kind of go back to where they normally are. So it just took a few more minutes to do. But now the nib, it looks like the gap is just perfect. I double check it with the feeler gauge, and when I start here at the back of the breather hole, again on camera, this is tough, there we go. I slide it out the front, and it just has just the right amount of resistance. It's not kind of just totally passing through freely, but just grabs a little bit right at the end. So here's the underside after the adjustment. You can see that slit is just there. That's all we need. So it's just a teeny little tweak. I gotta adjust that one time just a hair. It's just a touch low. Just carefully sliding the nib and feed back into the housing, making sure everything is seated. Double check the nib and feed to make sure they are aligned properly, and we should be good to go. Time for ink. It's the same one we were using before. Do that, and let's try the writing sample again. So I just finished doing the writing sample, telling you all about it, how it's better, and realized I actually didn't hit record. So let's just do this one more time for the record. And it now has an absolutely amazing nib. It's nice and soft, still has that nice bounce to it, but of course no more skips. The wetness is bang on. The figure eights are great. We got the line variation still. Nice little bounce to it if I'm just doing lots of little strokes here. Nice, and then again a little bit of pressure. Go slow, don't overdo it if you want to get some bounce. It's not a flex nib. Okay, so it's just for things if you want to, I don't know, underline something a little bit more if you have a title that you're doing, or just want to have, you know, a little character to one or two, you know, strokes within a word, just to highlight it a little bit more. But yeah, not a flex nib, but has a nice bounce to it. Overall, I really do like the pen. The flat spots, that's super duper handy. You know, the capping mechanism, super quick to do and pop on and off. It's quite satisfying how it does it as well. The fact it seals is really good. I was surprised. I thought this was going to have nib dry out, but haven't had that problem whatsoever, at least with the ink that I have been using in there. Nicely balanced, very comfortable. Lots of nib options, all of that. Like I said, mine was off a touch. We fixed it. I told them, they know about it. Yeah, like I said, the only thing I thought a little bit strange is just the assembly of the nib into the pen. You're just introducing a potential error. The capping is really cool. You can just do it this way. You can spin it. And of course, if you know, just, it's going to go back to center on its own, but if you just rotate it, oh, the focus is terrible. If you rotate it off a little bit, it can stay there. But it wants to go back to its spot naturally all on its own. So that's quite nice, and the fact you can do that too if you like the soft sort of assistance with the magnets. But magnets are cool. I like them on the pens. Capping, it's really neat. Just sucks the cap in there. Now, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened on mine, but let's say yours now is doing this, and that's where it's just always going to go instead of lining up. It's just going to go there. What you can do is make an adjustment. So you got those little tangs that are down in there. You get yourself a small little screwdriver, and for whatever reason, if things have moved, just like I moved the tripod, you can just wedge it in there and then just rotate a little bit, and I'll show you. So now mine will not cap straight. See, it's off to the side now. Okay, but let's say whatever reason, I don't know, assembly error or something happened with your pen, you were goofing around, you would just take a screwdriver, go down, grab in those little edges right there, just put it in between, and then I just rotate the body back a little bit just to change that alignment, and you'll fine tune it, and you'll get it pretty darn close. One little fine tune. And there we go, we're right back on track. So just thought I'd show you that as well. Now I probably splashed it on the screen a little bit earlier because I forgot to mention it, but there also is a discount code. They set that up for everybody as well. You just punch in Doodle, saves you 10%, and that is off the Canadian website because they are just entering into the Canadian market now. So that's really cool. Thanks again to Stilform for sending me their super cool fountain pen here for review. I have been enjoying it. We'd love to hear from you down there in the comments. Check the description for all the details again for the discount code, their websites, and all the details on that. While you're clicking on things, there's a thumbs up button and a subscribe button. Hit that one if you haven't. Got a bunch more stuff coming up. Until then, as always, we'll catch you next time.